Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 854A, and today's date is December 29th, 2015, and the title of the episode is Bail-in Procedures Go into Effect in 2016 to Prepare for the Economic Collapse. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, as the economy continually falls apart right in front of our eyes, we can see the consumer confidence among Americans is completely different. I mean, those who are aged 55 and older, it is at its lowest since September of 2014. On the other hand, confidence among the under 35 generation has hit its highest point in 9 years. The optimism gap between young and old Americans has never been greater at this point, and we need to look at why this is. The older generation looks at the situation and is very pessimistic about what is going on because they remember what it was like when times were good. They remember when salaries increased. They remember there was a point in time they were able to make everything work. Today's generation, they think this is the new normal. Not getting work coming out of college, not having enough to move out of your parents' house, paying high Obamacare premiums, and just scraping by every single day. And when they look at this, they think this is the way it's supposed to be. But we realize, for those people who are older, that this is not the way it's supposed to be. It is getting worse as time goes on. And as we head towards the end of this year to the start of the new year, we are continually seeing more companies laying off. Now, if the economy is improving the way the U.S. government central bankers are telling it's improving, why are we seeing the layoffs increase and accelerate so much? I mean, DuPont is going to be laying off 1,700 people. Citigroup next month is going to be laying off 2,000 during this time period during the holiday season. They're making these announcements. Everyone is getting worried right now. And as we go into next year, we're going to see a lot more companies come up and say, okay, we don't have the sales. We don't have the revenues. We need to let people go so we can buy back our stock and prop up the company. Because this is what they've been doing. Now, Case-Shiller is out there. And you have to remember, the data that they present is 2 months delayed. So they're talking about 2 months ago. And they're saying that home prices have soared the most since March. Home prices rose by 0.84% month on month in October, beating their expectations. Year-on-year gains missed their expectations of 5.54%. And what we're seeing right now, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever, is that existing home sales, new home sales are declining, mortgage applications are declining, and they're trying to convince us that home prices are continually moving upward. Now, I went out and I looked around the country to many cities. There are certain pockets where there are very wealthy individuals where prices are going up. But if you look at the middle class, everyday housing area, most of the prices now are stagnant or falling. And a lot of these homes that I'm looking at on the East Coast, down south, the West Coast, the Midwest, they can't move these properties. They're sitting for longer and longer periods. And these people are lowering their prices. And remember, the existing home sales dropped off in November to an annual rate of about 4.76 million, the slowest pace in 19 months. And what we're going to see is slowly but surely, and actually the National Association of Realtors has said that prices have come down and they're starting to fall. And we've shown prices coming down throughout the country. But they need to keep this illusion that everything is fine. And they cherry pick where they want to show the prices where they're going up. But what I look at is these certain cities which I saw last time, where the prices started to fall first and then spread to those cities that Case-Shiller is reporting on. And this is what I'm seeing right now. Now, everyone always wants things to happen really fast. Like, oh, let's just have the real estate market crash. Let's just have the collapse. But it doesn't work that way. You see cracks. You see chips and declines in the economy, and it slowly creeps up while they keep the illusion alive. And as we move closer and closer to the economic collapse, what do? They try to convince everyone that the economy is doing much, much better till the very end. And then they say it's completely unexpected, and they blame it on something else. This is how our leaders, well, I shouldn't even call them leaders. This is how the U.S. government employees and the central bank works. They did this back in 2008, leading up to the very last minute. They tried to convince everyone that everything was contained, everything was fine. There's no reason to worry about anything. Housing prices never go down. We're not forecasting any type of recession. They're doing the same thing right now. And we have already gotten the signal that the U.S. government central bankers are ready to bring down the economy. The Fed raised the rate. They're preparing and setting everything up. And we have to remember, come this January 1st, 2016, the new bail-in system will go into effect all over Europe. A lot of the European banks are going to take on this documentation where they can go inside the banks and steal the people's money. That's basically what it is. They've already done it to Cyprus. They've done it to a couple of banks in Italy. And we are most likely going to see this happen in Greece. And you have to remember, Greece, the people there have taken out a lot of their currency. They were worried about what happened in Cyprus. And they are not putting the currency back in the banks. And you can see at this point that all of this is coming together now and being set up for this great economic collapse. There are 6 countries that are not going to implement the bail-ins. And these countries are being referred to the European Court of Justice for their continued failure to transpose the EU's bail-in laws into international legislation. And why are they in such a rush to implement this, to get this ready in 2016? Because most likely, this is when we're going to see the entire crash of the system. Now, do we have a crystal ball? Do we know exactly when this date's going to be? No, we don't. But we can look at the indicators. We can understand what is going on. We can understand all the things that lead up to it. We can understand why they are placing this into effect. We can understand why all this is happening. But again, they're on their own time schedule. They don't want to be blamed for what is going to happen. And we're going to see more taxes. We're going to see the U.S. government employees, the central bankers, try to steal as much as they possibly can from the people. We're already getting some of this. There's a senator, Senator Chris Coons. He is proposing a war surtax to pay for the fight against the Islamic State. Now, remember, the Islamic State is the proxy army for the U.S. government. They've been put into place to overthrow the government of Syria, to remove Assad. And the cost of this is about $11 million every 24 hours. And the Office of Management and Budget estimates in 2002 that the Iraq War would cost about $50 billion to $60 billion. The real cost came out to about $1.64 trillion, plus an additional $715 billion for the war in Afghanistan. Those totals don't even incorporate the large and steadily growing costs of long-term care for our injured veterans, our military replenishment. And right now, a study out of Harvard in 2013 basically puts all these factors together and suggests that these wars will cost as much as $6 trillion. So this senator right now is looking to tax the people to pay for this war. And already, as of November 30th, the United States has spent $5.4 billion since U.S. airstrikes against the Islamic State began in August of 2014. That's 11 million every day. And to make every American feel guilty about what is going on here, he said, if we are asking our troops and their families to sacrifice, we should all give something to that effort. One way to offset rising costs while allowing all Americans to contribute is a temporary war surtax that includes an exemption for our troops and their families. In March, I introduced a federal budget amendment that would impose a temporary surtax to pay for our military operations against the Islamic State. When the Senate reconvenes in 2016, I again plan to explore this option. And we can see at this point, this is guilt, and we have to remember who controls the Islamic State, whose real war this is. And the people should not have to pay for these people's war. And they're going to continually add more and more taxes. And anytime they say something that's temporary, will never, ever be temporary. And we can see right now, this going forward is just going to be a long line of additional taxes, because you have to remember there is hardly any revenue coming into the government because it cannot keep up with the amount of debt that we have, the amount of interest on the debt. And this is why they're continually looking for new ways to bring in revenue. And we all have to stand up and say, you know what, enough's enough. We are not going to pay for this. Bring our troops home. There's no reason for us to be out there. Let's get rid of the central bank. Let's create the currency ourselves, back it with gold or however we're going to do it. But when the government loans the money out, there is no interest attached, so we don't have to worry about that whatsoever. This is what we need to do at this point. Adding more taxes, adding new programs, increasing the debt, this doesn't solve anything. Actually, this all makes it worse in the long run, because this system is designed to continually add more and more debt, which puts countries into bankruptcy, and they collapse, and the bankers come in and they steal their natural resources. This system is set up to do this. There's no way around it unless we get rid of the central bank and we wipe out all of this debt. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.